My name is Rob Noble, and I'm on the autistic spectrum. Mine is a mild sort of autism, but it still affects me badly. They call it level 1. Now, um, I wouldn't say I suffer from it because it isn't a disease or illness. It's something I was born and God's made me like this, and I've done my best to support God in many sort of ways. For example, um, my OCD. I've been obsessed about making money for overseas charities. It's been non-stop since I was 7 years of age. And then I was found when I was born. It was a sort of difficult situation for my mother, who got very stressed because I was not like other children. I wasn't talking, and even when I did talk, I didn't say much. My brother, who was 10 years older than me, used to bully me by uh, telling me these, teasing me in so many ways that I found out myself losing control and getting very upset and uptight about it. Uh, Once I threw a coat hanger through the window and smashed it, but my mother seemed to blame my brother for that. So about what I've got attention deficit, I've got OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and I've got dyspraxia. Now, dyspraxia is the one that really sort of affects me most. It's like living in chaos. Both in my uh, physical side and my mental side. I'll just explain. I'm no good at sports. In fact, my son took me to a golf range about 15 years ago. Not 15, it was longer than that. It was 25 years ago. And I just couldn't hit a ball. It took me about 15 times before I hit it. And when I hit it with my, I actually got it, but it only went a few yards. So, and I was never picked for the school teams until the last. Always the last person to be picked. And this was other things like I couldn't tie my wife. I can't tie my wife's necklace now, and I can't tie my shoelaces. So all my shoes are velcroed. Got over that one. Uh, but I can't even sort of knock a nail in to the wall straight. So it also affects my mind, and when I sort of think of things, sometimes or speak, um, I get confused sometimes. I don't understand um, people's sarcasm or humour, or if they say something which is sort of absolutely outrageous, I'll tend to believe them. And my upbringing was I used to live next door. Our house was quite a large house. It used to live next door to my grandmother, my grandfather, my uncle unmarried, my aunt unmarried, and elderly great aunt of mine who was, let's say today they would say she had learning difficulties, and she used to sort of do things like fuss around me, and when I was sitting down, ambush me with this big white um, serviette which would tie around my neck very tightly, and she used to give me hugs when I went in and when I went out. And I just didn't like hugging at all. I liked my own space. I was very sort of frustrated by that, and I remember in church. Uh, I went from Methodist to Anglican 8 years ago when we moved to Hazelmere. And the thing Anglicans do is this thing which I do not like is everyone greeting each other with a peace and hugging. Well, before lockdown, how it was, people used to hug each other and used to shake hands, and I just stood there, and if someone came up to me, I'd just go like that, um, and try to sort of avoid looking at anybody directly. Once somebody sort of came towards me, and I didn't see them first of all, and then as they were coming towards with their arms open. I suddenly jumped to the side because, and I apologised afterwards, but I just couldn't face being hugged. The exception is my family. I'm all right with my family, but even really good friends and some sort of other relatives, it just doesn't work for me. Uh, I live in this big bubble, great big bubble, which and this is my space, so to speak, and anything outside it is what is there. I want it kept there. I got into um, another embarrassing situation. My new vicar um, came 6 months ago, and Tim and made some marvellous changes. And one of the changes is he instigated cake and coffee at the end of the church. Now that's quite a small area, and sometimes we've got two services: one in the morning, one later at 9 o'clock, and one at 10:15. And once a month we now meet together, so the church is pretty full. And when it comes to coffee and cake time at the end, I love my cake, and I used to get out of my pew, not run down, walk briskly down the church, grab my cake and coffee, and outside sit on the benches outside to escape the crowds uh, forcing their way in. Now, I was at school, it was very difficult because I used to have this habit of, when I started school, I was very nervous, frightened of nodding my head like that. And I also was unattentive to the teachers, and I lost interest, and I got into a lot of trouble at school. Teachers didn't understand, didn't have anything like special needs today. Though this just didn't happen, and they didn't understand um, mine. And there was another boy who sat in front of me, exactly like me. Both two got picked on, and it wasn't very pleasant. But the saving grace was that at Sunday school, I loved my Sunday school because I had three friends: Richard, Malcolm, and Brian. Now, I didn't need any more friends. They came within my bubble, and I was very comfortable with them. And they were very good with me. I mean, they teased me sometimes, but they laughed with me rather than at me. We all had fun together as a child, and then when we were growing teenagers, we all did things that teenagers do, like wear winkle picker shoes, and go around the coffee bars, talk to our friends, meet up at each other's houses, and it was great until 1972 when Malcolm died of cancer. Uh, Richard moved to Australia, and Brian got married and moved wide away. And I was suddenly for 2 years, I didn't know what to do with myself. I used to stay at home, listen to music, and I used I used to love the thing I used to like is going to church and belonging to a church. I used to have class meetings in the Methodist church, and I used to like going to this small little gathering. And also there was a little club called the 20 Plus Club, and which I joined, and I was sort of friends there, but nobody close. And that was, that was it there. I didn't get out of it until 2 years later. I was working for Harrods. Um, uh, One of my obsessions was antiques, and the kids wanted to be um, a fireman or a train driver. I wanted to be an antique dealer, and this all came about because when I was a child, we used to go around over to my great uncle in Wales. And I remember being shown around by his housekeeper these beautiful antiques. He was very wealthy, he had this mansion. Um, he was um, in charge. He owned Crossley Cars, big motor company, and he was knighted, Sir William Letts, and he was quite well known at the time. And it was, well, I used to always like to see, he went abroad, the sort of things he'd brought from abroad, uh, lovely, beautiful things. His house was absolutely marvellous. So my antiques, love of antique furniture and things started then. And then I went to, when I was about 14, I used to go to jumble sales, and I used to go to help and then craftily bought things which I thought were good. Looking, I had an eye for good things, and I kept them in my mostly in the back room of my parents' house, which was my room. It was my territory. I had a snooker table in there, and I used to put my antiques in there, occasionally selling a few, making a profit on them, and that's how my antique started. Anyway, I was at Harrods, and I was still very, I was terrified of approaching anybody as I had throughout my life, and customers uh, 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 who looked at me and actually came to me, I would serve, and I was happy with that because I was wanted. But I actually feared going to somebody who would rebuff me and say, "No, I'm just looking." And so I lost out on all that. And I had an assistant um, called Roger, came once. He was a student in his holidays, who used to have the experience of Harrods, and a very bright chap he was. And he seemed to, as I was telling him what to do as my assistant, and it's during the sale this happened. He asked me a lot of questions. He said to me, you ought to be able to um, do better than you're doing. He said, don't be afraid of these people. You said you're good at acting. Imagine that you're on stage. This is Harrods showroom, and this is your stage, and you are the prime actor, and then all the customers that come round are your fellow actors, and you just go up to them and talk to them. And he told me loads of things he told me. Another thing I was told about, I was a great worrier, and he told me how to compartmentalize my worries. And if I'm so worried about something, ask the question, what's the problem? I'll analyze the problem. What is the cause of the problem? And think of possible solutions to the problem, and then choose the best one, and then act upon it. And that seems to have worked. Now, he'd been on a course, and he recommended me to go on Dale Carnegie Human Relations and Public Speaking course, which I found out there was one the following week, which I went on. And I went from the bottom salesman to the top within 6 months. I had more confidence in myself, um, and I took away this fear of approaching customers. And he used to sort of talk about enthusiasm and how to be enthusiastic. He said, if you act enthusiastic, you'll be enthusiastic. And I always remember. Um, and he told me a poem: if you think you're better than you are, if you think you dare not, you don't. If you'd like to win, but think you'll lose, it's almost certain you won't. Life's battles don't always go to the strongest or fastest man, but in the end, the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. Now, I haven't really mentioned about my charity work much. How it all started was that I was in Sunday school, and there was this teacher, Miss Tucker, who'd been a missionary in China, and I was really uh, impressed by what she was talking about, and she told me of these wonderful stories, and I had a picture in my mind of what the stories were like, and then I was encouraged to work, save money at the age of 7, raise money for the Methodist Missionary Society. I found having events was helpful, and so it all carried on till today. Now, I just want to finish by mentioning events. I've had about 100 events over my lifetime, and this event I've got now is for the Autistic Society, National Autistic Society, and I've got a book out. It's on Amazon, and it's entitled "My Life on the Autistic Spectrum." My Life on the and that is out. It can be bought from Amazon. And I just want to say, go for it. Don't You can self improve yourself um, by many things, but if you're determined enough, you can make your life a lot happier. I turned my life um, into a very happy one, especially when I met my wife in 1976 and we got married. Thanks for listening.